Welcome to this explainer. We usually think of infrastructure as these massive, abstract, multi-million-dollar projects. But the reality? Major financial waves almost always start as tiny ripples, sometimes right on a single person's deck. Today, we're diving into real-world data from a water garden restoration project to show you exactly how localized property maintenance choices directly connect to massive, long-term financial planning. It's a fascinating dynamic. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The $1,615 localized repair. 2. Pergola options. 3. Minor landscaping fixes. 4. Long-term solutions. And finally, 5. The Condominium Act factor. All right, part 1. The $1,615 localized repair, focusing on Unit 109. Let's start right at the doorstep. $1,615. Now, in the grand scheme of a commercial property budget, that might just look like a rounding error, right? But this is an exact quote from our construction to replace rotten wood directly on the deck of Unit 109. And this is exactly where infrastructure gets deeply personal. A rotting deck means that resident literally can't safely step outside to enjoy their morning coffee. This micro-repair immediately impacts their daily life and their property value. But here's the thing. This immediate $1,600 fix actually sets the baseline for understanding communal costs. The board couldn't just look at this in a vacuum. While they moved to fix the rot at Unit 109, they simultaneously had to figure out if the surrounding wire mesh also needed replacement. Fixing the literal ground a resident stands on is the frontline defense against broader structural failure, and it dictates immediate board action. Moving on to Part 2, pergola options, and the classic battle of maintenance versus replacement. Stepping just outside the individual unit, we run into a quintessential property management dilemma. Do you slap a $2,400 maintenance Band-Aid on the water garden's pergola by just sanding and staining it? Or do you bite the bullet and do a full roof replacement for $7,800 plus tax? This is the exact tension boards face every single day. Manage the decay temporarily or completely replace the asset for more than triple the price? Well, in this case, the board went for the long-term play. On June 23, 2026, they officially resolved to accept the $7,800 proposal to completely replace the roof. By rejecting the patch job, they signaled a major strategic shift. A quick fix might work for isolated rot on Unit 109's deck, but for major communal structures, you need definitive, durable replacements. Next up, Part 3, landscaping and minor fixes, keeping up the water garden. Of course, property management isn't just about structural wood. Routine upkeep is a constant juggling act of different vendors. You've got Almeida Landscaping, charging $898 just to level some interlocking brick in May 2025. Then Greenblock comes in a year later to pressure wash stones, and hey, they also swapped out 2 dead trees for a surprisingly low $100 a pop. These are the daily maintenance heartbeats of a property. Relatively low costs, sure, but they require a constant cash flow just to keep the environment safe and looking good. Let's zoom out a bit for Part 4, long-term decking solutions, preparing for the future. Okay, so looking at the 2025 Reserve Fund study, a pretty major shift is being discussed behind the scenes. While the existing wooden decks were recently sealed just to buy a little more time, the superintendent reported talks about ditching wood entirely. The goal is to upgrade to a composite material for better durability. Because let's face it, continually replacing localized rot, like that $1,600 bill for Unit 109, is a losing battle over the decades. And here is the massive reality check. If they don't upgrade to composite and they just stick with swapping old wood for new wood, the numbers get staggering. Synergy Partners budgeted a present cost of $300,000 just for a replace like-with-like wood replacement. $300,000. That completely shifts your perspective, doesn't it? Dropping a pin on the timeline paints a really stark picture. Right now, originating with a 2025 study, we're just talking about material upgrades. Then, in June 2026, we feel the immediate, localized pain of that $1,615 patch job for Unit 109. But looming down the road, roughly around 2034, is this colossal $300,000 wave for full wood replacement. It perfectly highlights how that $1,600 fix today is just a tiny symptom of aging infrastructure waiting to demand a massive capital payout. Which brings us to Part 5, the Condominium Act factor, red tape, and deck upgrades. Now you're probably wondering, if wood costs $300K to replace later, Why not just commit to that super durable composite material right now and be done with it? Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple. Moving from wood to composite triggers Section 97 of the Condominium Act. The law actually differentiates between a standard major repair, which is replacing like with like, and an improvement. When you change the fundamental material to something better, it legally becomes an improvement, and that brings an entirely new level of regulatory red tape, often requiring complicated owner consultations and voting. The Reserve Fund study actually spells this legalese out perfectly. Upgrading to composite would likely be considered an improvement under Section 97. So changing what your deck is made of isn't just a simple maintenance choice for the property manager anymore. It's a complex legal procedure. It means a board can't just quietly upgrade the infrastructure to save money on future rot without navigating some very specific statutory hoops first. And that is the ultimate challenge of property management. I want to leave you with this final thought. We've seen how a $1,615 localized repair is absolutely crucial today to ensure the safety of Unit 109. But as those localized costs inevitably balloon toward a $300,000 total replacement, how does a community strike the perfect balance? How do you pay for today's decay while simultaneously gathering the political will and navigating the legal hurdles to invest in tomorrow's infrastructure? It is a delicate, fascinating balancing act. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning how the small details build the big picture.